My wife 34F just told me she wants to back out of the divorce she filed, but after everything we've been through, I'm torn on whether to give our marriage another shot or let go for good. Hey Reddit. My wife 34F and I 37M have been married for nearly a decade. We met through mutual friends, fell in love fast, and honestly, I thought we were one of those couples who would make it. But in the last couple of years, things started to deteriorate. We had our usual disagreements, of course, but they grew into full-blown fights, and we just couldn't see eye to eye on anything. It felt like every minor issue was now a big deal, and we'd argue for hours about things that didn't matter before. Around 6 months ago, my wife blindsided me with divorce papers. I knew things were rough, but I didn't expect her to actually go that far. She said she needed out because she was unhappy and that maybe being apart would allow both of us to breathe and find happiness again. She kept insisting it was the best decision for both of us. I didn't argue. Instead, I agreed. We were just so drained by the constant fighting that I was almost relieved to have some kind of solution, even if it was an extreme one. Fast forward to last week, and she suddenly says she wants to stop the divorce proceedings. She didn't really give me a solid explanation. All she said was that she was rethinking everything and wasn't sure if separating was the right move anymore. Now, I'm at a complete loss. I feel so mixed up. On one hand, we've been together for so long that I can't imagine starting over, but on the other hand, I've been through months of mental preparation for a life without her. I was finally beginning to accept that maybe we'd both be better off apart. In the months since we started this divorce process, I did a lot of soul searching. I tried therapy and found it helpful, at least to manage my own emotions and understand some of my patterns. I realized I had grown distant because I was genuinely unhappy, and I can only assume she was too. But now that she wants to try again, I don't know if going back will help us. I feel guilty for even hesitating, but the thought of diving back into all the same issues is terrifying. So, what do I do here? Do I go along with her wish to try again? Is it foolish to think we can salvage this when we've already gone this far down the road? Update. So, a lot has happened since I last posted. After reading through everyone's comments and suggestions, I decided it was best to have an honest conversation with her about why she wanted to pause the divorce. I wanted her to know that this isn't something we can keep going back and forth on, it's too emotionally draining. I felt like if we were going to revisit the idea of being together, it needed to be for the right reasons. When we finally sat down, she told me that she'd been feeling this huge sense of regret ever since filing. She said she'd gotten so caught up in her unhappiness that she thought ending our marriage would fix everything. But after living alone for a while and not having me around to talk to, she realized how empty her life felt. She missed the little things, the routines we had, even the comfort of just knowing we were in the same space. She admitted that she hadn't fully considered how deeply intertwined our lives had become and that she couldn't imagine actually moving on without me. To be honest, hearing her say that made me feel conflicted. Part of me was happy to know she still cared, but another part was wary. I told her I wasn't sure if I was ready to just act like none of this had happened. I've been mentally preparing myself for a different life, one without her, and it's not something I can just snap back from. She got emotional, which threw me off because she's usually pretty composed. She asked if we could at least try counseling together, give it one last shot before fully calling it quits. She seemed genuinely remorseful and scared, almost desperate to save what was left of our relationship. After that conversation, I agreed to think about it. I didn't commit to anything, but I said I'd consider the idea of counseling if we could both go into it with an open mind. For now, we're not officially canceling the divorce proceedings, but we're pausing them temporarily. I've got mixed feelings, but I think I owe it to both of us to at least see if there's anything left to salvage. Another update. So, we started counseling. I was hesitant and skeptical at first, and I think she was too, but it's actually been helping. Our counselor is very neutral, which I appreciate because it prevents any blame game from taking over. Instead, we're focusing on communication and trying to understand each other without immediately jumping to conclusions or getting defensive. One of the things that came up is that neither of us really knew how to handle the everyday stresses we were facing. I was taking on extra work to manage some financial burdens, and she was feeling lonely and ignored because I was often too tired to be present. She admitted that she didn't communicate her feelings openly because she thought I'd see it as complaining. Meanwhile, I thought I was doing the right thing by working harder, but in reality, it was driving a wedge between us. The counselor asked us to list out what we each wanted in the relationship moving forward, and honestly, that was an eye-opener. Her biggest request was for me to be more emotionally present, and she acknowledged that she needed to work on expressing her needs directly instead of bottling them up. I realized that I had to let go of the resentment I'd been holding onto and start seeing her as a partner again, rather than someone I was just trying to keep happy without understanding what she really wanted. The sessions are tough, and I can't say we're back to where we were when we first fell in love, but we're at least talking openly now. It's weird, but this structured approach seems to be working. For the first time in ages, I feel like we're genuinely trying to meet each other halfway, instead of one of us always bending over backwards while the other feels unsatisfied. Final update. A few more sessions have gone by, and I wanted to give an update because a lot of people reached out with some good advice. Things are complicated. In some ways, I feel closer to her than I have in years, but I still have doubts. There's this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like, what if this is just temporary? What if, once the novelty of trying again fades, we're back to square one? I voiced this to her, and surprisingly, she understood. She admitted that she's scared too, but that she'd rather try than give up without knowing if we could make it work. We've both agreed to keep the divorce papers on hold for a few more months. Our counselor suggested giving ourselves a timeline to reassess things. We're both putting effort in, and I think the fact that we've come this far shows that we're not just trying to avoid being alone, we're genuinely trying to rebuild. The hard part is accepting that rebuilding doesn't mean we'll end up with what we had before. At this point, I'm cautiously optimistic. We're taking it one day at a time, and I think that's all we can really do. I don't know if we'll make it long term, but I'm learning a lot about myself and my needs, and I think she is too. For now, I think we're both at peace with where we're at. It feels like progress, however small it may be. If we ultimately end up parting ways, at least we'll both know we tried. Thanks again to everyone who took the time to comment and offer advice. It's been a roller coaster, but at least now, I feel like I'm moving forward in a way that's more thoughtful and less reactive. I'll post another update down the line, but for now, this is where we're at.